I think he'd be ready to go. That's my personal opinion. I do. I think that, he's now. I would say this, because times have changed. Like you said, times have changed. In the years past, you draft a guy, or whenever you drafted him, even if it was that early, those guys would, traditionally not play until their second or third year. But really, ever since probably 6 or 7 years ago, you started seeing more guys playing early. But I think he has that capability.
That's Giants offensive coordinator Mike Shula. He was asked the specific question as to whether or not rookie quarterback Daniel Jones would be ready to start week one if he were in a different circumstance. The question implies that he won't start week one in New York because Eli Manning is the starter. But Chris, the more I think about this, and first of all, it's probably smart for the Giants at this point to stop talking about Daniel Jones, but the more I think about this latest comment, I'm starting to wonder, do they have something percolating that we don't know about? I mean, this is the team that brought us, we didn't sign Odell Beckham Jr. to trade him. So there's always something going on behind the curtain that we don't know about. And could it be that Daniel Jones, they liked him enough to make him the 6th overall pick? They feel compelled to justify their faith in Daniel Jones. He's competing with, in theory, if it's a competition, a quarterback that we all believe his best days are far behind him. If the Giants are right about their faith in Daniel Jones, he should be able to win the job fair and square and be the week one starter, right?
Yeah, well, no, I got to see it to believe it. I don't, the Giants have been in Eli Manning's corner so loyally, it's loyal to a fault. I mean, again, hey, Eli Manning, the Giants, they've been to the playoffs once since they won the Super Bowl in 2011. They went to a wild card game up in Green Bay. There's not a lot of starting quarterbacks who can sit here and say, oh, I've been a starting quarterback for a football team for the last 8 years, and we've only gone to the playoffs once, and I've led the league in losses and interceptions through that time period, and I'm still the starting quarterback and the man, and the organization backs me. So that right there, to me, is the first issue. And, hey, there's been a lot of talk for 2 or 3 years about replacing an Eli Manning. We weren't sure if they were going to draft a quarterback in the 2018 draft. They took Saquon Barkley instead because they just felt like they couldn't pass him up. I get it. He's that special. But Daniel Jones, I do think, and I said this, I know at the start of the show, is physically more gifted than Eli in every category right now, especially arm stronger, better athlete, got good size. He can do it all. And I think what Mike Shula was really just trying to say, and they're still trying to push this narrative that Daniel Jones was worth the number 6 pick too. I think this plays into it. He's just trying to tell people, I think this guy has the type of DNA and mentality to where he would be ready week one if we really needed him to be.
But isn't the best evidence that he's worth the number 6 pick to let him compete with Eli Manning and give him a chance to be the starter? And I can hear Dave Gettleman now explaining when the decision is made in August. And maybe they soften us up to it as well. Maybe that's one of the things they learned a couple of years ago with the abrupt benching of Eli Manning and how people reacted, in part because they were stunned. They already tipped their hand about drafting Daniel Jones. Maybe they've learned there's a PR component to this where you have to get people comfortable with the idea. Maybe at some point we're going to start to be made comfortable with the idea. Maybe the first clue is going to be it's going to be a competition.
Right.
No spots are determined on the depth chart. That's all to be proven in training camp and preseason. Once we start hearing things like that, Chris, I'm going to feel even more strongly that, remember that over-under? There's a sports book in Las Vegas that set the over-under for Daniel Jones starts at 7.5.
Yeah.
My first thought was, that's up. Yeah, bet the farm on the under. Then I'm thinking they know something, and I maybe the right bet there is the over.
Well, hey, listen, they know that Eli Manning is at the end of his career. That's the one thing they know. I mean, hey, it's hard to say Eli's one of the best 32 quarterbacks in football right now, to be quite honest with you. I mean, that's really it is. I mean, if you made me rank him last year, I would have said he was outside the 32 starting quarterbacks. I thought there's backups that were better than he is. So, that's one thing or one area, certainly. But, Mike, here's to me, at least in my experience, a guy I know I played in the football. I've been following it a long time. Here will be the context clues I look for in training camp and the preseason. Okay, if we start to hear Daniel Jones is looking great, he's doing awesome in training camp and practice, okay, that's great. That's one clue. The next clue to me, though, to see if he legitimately has a chance to play early on in the season or maybe start a week one like we're talking about here is, how do they manage him in the preseason games? That's going to be the thing I look for. If they think, oh gosh, this guy's good and he has a chance to be the starter week 1, they will let him play with the ones or at least play with the really good number 2s. They're going to script for success more to make sure his numbers and everything looks good if they really want him to play. If they don't want him to play, they might not design plays in the preseason to make sure he looks so good and just let him learn the basic plays of the offense. So to me, those are kind of the politics or the angles teams take if they're trying to set it up, and certainly something I'd be looking at.
Hey, and then there's the reality that he simply shows up at training camp and outperforms Eli Manning, and everyone knows it. I think back to 2012 when the Seahawks gave Matt Flynn $10 million guaranteed, which was a heck of a lot more then than it is now, and drafted Russell Wilson. Pete Carroll was praised for being so brave to go with Wilson. Look, it would have been ludicrous for him not to, because everybody in the organization knew Wilson was better than Flynn. Yes. He outperformed him. And that's ultimately what's going to determine this. In football, one of the few remaining meritocracies. If Daniel Jones plays well, if he outperforms Eli Manning, I think he's going to be the week 1 starter. And the thing is, at some level, the Giants, right, are going to maybe not necessarily rig the competition in Jones' favor, but if it's even remotely close, they're going to want to show that they did the right thing in trusting Daniel Jones is their 6th overall pick in the draft.
Yeah.
And he should be able to beat out Eli Manning at this point. Again, they're not going to come out and say it, but these are the things we need to be watching going forward.
Yeah, no, all your points are right. And to what you're saying, too, I'd be shocked if that wasn't the case, really, throughout training camp. I mean, we talked about this with the Redskins and Dwayne Haskins. Hey, players are watching. They're watching film of practice. Coaches are talking. You go through a week or 2 weeks and Daniel Jones is out there, just striping the ball, throwing rockets and spirals and accurate and making great decisions and all those things. The players notice. And then you start to get a buzz in the locker room. And all of a sudden the coaches start to hear, hey, the players they believe in Daniel Jones, and then that filters up to upstairs. And yeah, would the Giants give him a chance if that's the case? I'm going to say no. I think they're going to let Eli have one more shot no matter what. It's just I haven't seen anything else but to believe otherwise at this point. They continually placate to Eli and talk about it, and I know obviously they're trying to move on with Daniel Jones, but I just got to see the actions come into play before I believe that the Mara family, the Tisch family, and the New York Giants are not going to give Eli Manning every opportunity to start and win some games early on in the year.
I just think it's easier to make the transition before the season even begins, because it's just awkward during, and it's sad if you end up benching him during the season and there's a swan song, and what do you do with him at that point? And that's the other question. Let's say they would decide, and I know this is a big if, to make Daniel Jones the week 1 starter. What do you do with Eli Manning at that point? You've already paid him $5 million this year. He's due to make another $11.5 million in salary that becomes fully guaranteed if he's on the regular season opening roster.
Yeah.
Do you bench him? Do you cut him? Do you tell him, look, we know you have a no-trade clause, but we've got an opportunity to trade you to a team that needs a starter right now because of injury. You can go there and play, or you can stay here and not play. I just think there's a lot of chapters left in this one. And, once they drafted Daniel Jones, I think it was very common and understandable to say, okay, well, at some point down the road, they're going to have the conversation. I think the conversation may be sooner than we otherwise would have thought, by virtue of the fact that he was pick 6, not pick 17, not pick 30,
right.
Pick 6. That's the clue.
Yep.
That maybe this isn't a guy who's going to sit on the bench for an extended period of time, Chris.
No, I mean, I wouldn't think so either. You don't draft a guy at number 6 to have him sitting over there, drinking Gatorade and looking at the clipboard and telling everybody good job. I mean, you're definitely right about that. You want a guy to contribute. You hope he contributes at least within the first 2 years, and you hope really, ideally, it's in 1 year. Your point about, would a team trade for Eli Manning? Hey, I think if a team was really good and they just said, okay, we're desperate and something happened in training camp, maybe Eli Manning would join a team that he felt was a quality football team. I don't think he waives his no-trade clause unless he felt like it's a team that was truly a playoff/Super Bowl contender. But the other thing I'd say, too, is, hey, even if they did start Daniel Jones, let's not forget, last year we saw 2 rookie quarterbacks get hurt, and Sam Darnold and Josh Allen. It's good to have a guy like Eli Manning behind those type of guys, too, in that situation, to where your season doesn't fall apart if the rookie rookie does get hurt, and now you got a veteran quarterback to come in and save the day.
Boy, that would be awkward, though.
Yes,
Bench
it would.
for week 1,
right,
and then called into action week 4 or week 5 because the starter got injured. All right, we're going to take a break. When we return, we talked yesterday about Sean McVay's over-preparation in the wrong areas for Super Bowl 53. So that leads to this question of the day. Which head coach and quarterback combination would you want if you were facing Bill Belichick and the Patriots? More PFT Live right after this.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.